Beneath the scorching sands of the desert lurks a creature of myth and mystery. It's inspired several iterations, including the infamous sandworm from the Dune series. This elusive creature is said to have a lethality that defies belief, and unlike most things on this channel, it could be real. From the pursuits of amateur cryptozoologists to the scrutiny of academics, join me as we unpick this mystery and untangle the truth behind the legend of the Mongolian death worm. Worms as a collective group of organisms hold significant ecological importance. We've all encountered them in one form or another, hopefully in the dirt, otherwise get to the doctors, and renowned figures like Charles Darwin devoted nearly 50 years towards studying these unassuming creatures. Luckily, as an Englishman, he mainly dealt with the garden variety. I'll tell you who one-ups Darwin when it comes to wormage, and that's Kevin Bacon. He took on a whole cluster of gigantic predatory worms and saved a very dusty trailer park at the same time. The worms, or graboids, in the movie Tremors were inspired by the legend of the death worm, and believe it or not, actually depicts their appearance pretty accurately, albeit a little bit exaggerated in size. So it begs the question, does or can such an animal exist? Accounts of the creature reached Western audiences through an American paleontologist and real-life Indiana Jones, Roy Chapman Andrews. His 1926 publication, On the Trail of Ancient Man, recounts hearsay about the monster, which he gleaned from Mongolian officials during a gathering. Despite none of the attendees having personally sighted the creature, they held steadfast belief in its existence, offering detailed descriptions. Quoting Mongolian Prime Minister Damdin Bazar, who looks strikingly dapper here, it was described as follows: "It is shaped like a sausage, has no head nor legs, and is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the desert. Its appearance has been likened to a glistening internal organ characterised by a slimy texture, prominent veins resembling blood vessels, and a reported length varying from 2 to 7 feet long. And it was adorned with spikes protruding from both ends. I mean, it was never going to look nice with a name like the death worm." Known as Olgoi Korkoi in its native tongue, meaning intestine worm, this creature instills such dread among the Mongolian populace that just uttering its name is believed to invite misfortune. Preferring the seclusion of subterranean burrows beneath the desert terrain, the Mongolian death worm emerges sparingly, typically during the damp months of June and July. Locals are acutely aware of the hazards posed by encountering this elusive creature and take great care avoiding it. In his book Secrets in Mongolia, Czech cryptozoologist Ivan McCurley, renowned for his investigations into phenomena like the Loch Ness Monster, recounts the creature based on second-hand accounts. It is challenging to discern its head from its tail as it lacks visible eyes, nostrils or a mouth. Despite resemblances to ordinary earthworms such as elongated, segmented bodies, the creature possesses some unique characteristics. According to nomadic accounts, the colour yellow is said to attract the creature, and legends suggest it lays eggs within the intestines of camels, hence a potential attraction to yellow. Underground, the worm burrows, causing sand ripples on the surface. Sensing the approach of sizable creatures, it attacks from beneath, erupting with a discharge of corrosive yellow saliva. According to Mongolian nomads, the creature coats its prey with this substance, imparting a corroded yellow hue to everything it touches. As it launches its assault, bubbles on its skin swell with venom, bursting upon contact and instantly killing any unfortunate victim splashed by the toxin. A little bit overkill, but alright. Livestock and humans are considered its primary targets and succumb instantaneously upon being struck by the worm's secretions. Some speculate that the venom possesses unique properties, capable of swiftly decomposing organic matter, leaving no trace of its victims. Convenient. Rumours suggest the possibility of the creature producing electric shocks potent enough to fatally injure an adult human, although nomads of the Gobi Desert regard such claims as purely folkloric, and the sensation of an electric shock sounds very similar of how you might feel if you received a swift bite of sorts, but more on that later. I couldn't find the direct source, but Soviet paleontologist Ivan Yefmerov also wrote an article about the death worm and how it killed 2 of his colleagues during an expedition in the 40s. They were 2 fat snakes like creatures curled up in the sand. When our Grisha jumped out of the cab, our operator shouted, "Don't shoot, catch him alive," and ran after him. At that moment, the old Mongolian man beside me grabbed my hand and looked at me with a frightened look and begged, "Leave it, there will be death, call them back." So I called out Grisha and Misha, "Come back," but they kept running to that animal, not knowing if they heard me. Suddenly, two worms formed a ring which immediately turned dark blue. At first, Misha fell silently on the sand and became completely motionless. After a while, Grisha fell to the same place. I took my pistol and ran after them, but the two worms were already gone. Unfortunately, our co-workers were already dead due to toxins. Didn't take a picture though. Despite the enduring local belief in the worm, substantiating evidence or scientific research validating its existence remains elusive. Skeptics categorise the creature as mere folklore devoid of any factual basis. Nevertheless, a plethora of reported sightings and encounters persist over the years, fueling the intrigue surrounding the creature. Both local inhabitants and tourists alike have recounted witnessing the elusive worm. These narratives commonly depict the creature emerging from the sandy terrain, launching swift attacks on its victims, only to retreat underground once more. In preparation for his expedition to the Gobi Desert in the 1920s, Roy Chapman Andrews received a peculiar request from the Mongolian officials. The Mongolian premier had tasked him with capturing a specimen of the death worm for the government. Despite Andrews never having personally witnessed the creature, he had been privy to numerous accounts detailing its existence. He pledged to seize the worm should he encounter one, equipped with long steel forceps and protective eyewear to mitigate its venomous nature. However, as one might anticipate, Andrews did not come across any death worms during his extensive desert exploration. He did find dinosaur egg nests and a bunch of fossils though, so it wasn't a totally wasted trip. Following the initial reports of the death worm in 1929, Mongolia's government took stringent measures banning any mention of the creature and prohibiting visitors from accessing the Gobi Desert in pursuit of the monster. However, a political shift in the 1990s meant several expeditions were allowed to embark on searches for the elusive giant worm. I bet they couldn't wait. Among these adventurers was our buddy Ivan McCurley. It wasn't until he'd reached his late 40s that he was able to conduct research in Mongolia, marking the beginning of his quest. Over the span of 3 expeditions in 1990, 92 and 2004, McCurley tirelessly scoured the Mongolian landscape in pursuit of the elusive creature. His next idea was a bit questionable though. Call me a cynic, but I feel he might have blurred fact with fiction in this next move. Drawing inspiration from Frank Herbert's renowned 1965 science fiction novel Dune, which features colossal sandworms attracted to rhythmic vibrations, McCurley and his team experimented with various methods to project vibrations underground during their search. Among their creations was a motor-powered thumping machine. Despite the earnest efforts, their endeavours proved unproductive, leading McCurley to ultimately conclude that the creature likely resided solely in the realm of myth. I think we could have skipped a step there, Ivan, before reaching that conclusion. Undeterred, however, in 2005, Richard Freeman, a zoological journalist associated with the Centre for Fortean Zoology, led an expedition in pursuit of the death worm. Yet their efforts proved, you guessed it, unsuccessful. This is starting to sound like a bad excuse to get out of the house at this point. Unlike certain cryptids such as Bigfoot or Yeti, which boast numerous alleged footprints and photographs, evidence supporting the death worm's existence is exceedingly scarce. But perhaps a zoological perspective offers insight into separating fact from fiction. Firstly, don't be misled by the term worm in its name, as this is merely an English translation. If the creature does inhabit the harsh climate of the Gobi Desert, it's improbable that it resembles a soft, fleshy worm. Instead, it's more plausible that the creature belongs to the snake family, or a type of skink. A likely candidate could be a potential new species of Amphisbaenia, or worm lizard, a group of limbless reptiles with elongated bodies, though typically non-venomous. I mean, look at that thing. That has got to be it, surely. Moreover, if the creature is indeed a vertebrate, it would possess a spine, yet no skeletal remains have been discovered. It's worth noting that desert environments are known to preserve carcasses better than other climates, raising further questions regarding the absence of tangible evidence. In fact, in 1983, locals who claimed to have encountered the death worm were presented with a specimen of the Tartar sand boa, which they confirmed as resembling the elusive creature. The sand boa snake earns its name due to its adaptation to sandy habitats and its propensity for burrowing. Well, that's it then. We can go home, surely. Not just yet. While the Tartar sand boa matches the size and robustness associated with the fat death worm, it lacks key distinguishing features. Namely, it does not exhibit the red coloration or spiny protrusions described in eyewitness accounts. Crucially, the Tartar sand boa is not venomous, thus debunking the tales of venomous encounters resulting in death. I'm no snake expert, but I'm pretty confident it doesn't explode in a veil of toxic yellow poison either. The only venomous snake capable of surviving in the Gobi Desert environment is a death adder, a member of the cobra family, a death cobra, if you will. However, the death adder is indigenous to Australia and New Guinea and is considerably smaller than the rumoured size of the Mongolian death worm. One intriguing theory proposes that the worm could potentially be a remnant from prehistoric eras, a living relic that has endured and adapted to the unforgiving desert environment over millennia. That old chestnut. Among many conjectures, one particularly fascinating suggestion is that the death worm may represent a terrestrial variation of the large marine bobbit worm. If you've ever seen one, you'll know that this is king of the freaky looking worms category. Imagine running into one of those when you're skinny dipping. Ouch. So what's in favour of it existing? Things seem heavily weighted in the against category so far. Well, considering the vast expanse of the Gobi Desert spanning an area of 500,000 square miles of rugged terrain, the possibility of undiscovered animal species thriving within its confines can't be discounted. Furthermore, there does exist worm species known to inhabit sandy environments rather than soil, exemplified by the giant beach worm found in Australia, although it's certainly not as dry as the Gobi, so it's clutching at straws a little bit here. Moreover, worms rely on a unique circulatory system where oxygen is absorbed through their skin and transported throughout their bodies. This mechanism theoretically enables worms to attain considerable sizes, akin to the 5-foot length attributed to the worm. Given these factors, while the possibility of such a creature remains unlikely, the conditions present in the Gobi Desert does present a very small window for the possibility of its existence, maybe. From a folkloric standpoint, the widespread dissemination of legends surrounding the deathworm shows how stories can just spread across regions with trade and travel. Similar patterns can be observed with other mythical creatures like dragons or leprechauns or mermaids, which are commonly described across different cultures despite lacking empirical evidence of its existence. While the native Mongolian population remains steadfast in their belief in the deathworm, it will require extensive research to satisfy the scientific community at large. Classic science always wants proof. Perhaps in the near future, whether it be next week, next month or next year, such a peculiar creature may indeed be discovered and subjected to examination. However, until concrete evidence surfaces, Roy Chapman Andrews' assessment nearly a century ago stands firm. The creature likely exists solely within the realm of legend.